All right, so welcome everybody to the Westchester-Playa Democratic Club event this evening. We are all together tonight because we are going to be hearing from some of our local legislators and or their staff about bills that the Westchester-Playa Dem Club have chosen to advocate for this year. So let me go ahead and give us some rules of engagement. So if you were at an in-person meeting, they'd tell you where the bathrooms are and all those kind of good things. We are on Zoom, so I am going to be muting everybody during the meeting. The way this is going to work is each representative or their legislative staff is going to have about 10-15 minutes per bill to go through, discuss the bill, discuss where it is in the legislative process, and then also there'll be a little bit of time for questions. You can, of course, put your questions in the chat. And then if you don't want to ask them out loud, I'll make sure to monitor the chat. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. And then we will go ahead and share the screen. Okay, there we go. Let me go ahead and share the screen. All right, can you see my screen? Yes, hopefully. Let me make sure my sound is going to be shared because we actually have a video from one of the elected. So that's pretty awesome. All right. So once again, my name is Liz Kane and I'm the president of the Westchester-Playa Democratic Club this year. And it's with great honor that I'm, holding this meeting for our club. Our club's done a lot of great work this year so far on really thinking about the goals that we had, which were to educate our club and our community on the democratic process in the state of California and the US, engage in that deep learning and sharing, and then empowering us to think about how we can also become advocates for the legislation that we support and also be advocates within our own community. So I am going to go ahead and hand this meeting over to the Vice President of Political Affairs, Amani Sanati. She would unmute herself.
I'm unmuted.
And I am her back-of-house tech. So she's going to go next slide. And then I am going to slide over. And if you are here representing a elected, or if you are the elected that snuck in on me and I didn't see you, when it's your turn to speak, raise your virtual hand and that way I'll be able to pin you to the top. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead, Amanis.
All right, fabulous. Well, I want to just give you a heads up that we are going to be expecting Ms. Tina Andolino first, or Andolina, the legislative director from Senator Ben Allen. So I'm just letting you know, Liz, to kind of keep an eye because I don't see her logged on yet. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I just came from my daughter's open house and I was saying how excited I was for this meeting. And she says, Mom, we know, don't worry. We know you're excited. So yes, I'm very excited for this meeting, especially after participating in a few of the hearings that have been taking place up in the Hill, up in Sacramento. So we'll get more into that as we move on. So my name is Amani Sanati, as Liz introduced me, and I am the Vice President of Political Affairs. And yes, the 3 E's that we kind of came up with over the holidays our goals are to engage our community, right? We have to get the buy-in. We have to get people excited about our democracy. And then comes the education. And after the education, our hope is to empower ourselves to do something with this, because I think we're here because we realize that we need to do things to make change. We can no longer just sit around. Our vote is not enough. So all that to say, I think we can proceed to the next slide. Let me see if I can see that. Okay, so I'm checking. She said she'd be on about 6:45. Do we see her yet? Because if not, I'm just going to jump on into it because it's pretty self-explanatory.
She's not here, so go ahead.
Okay, so what we've been learning about the legislative process, and I do see that we have Brandon from our Assembly Member's office. Thank you so much for being here. If I am getting any of this wrong, feel free to chime in, or if you want to take over on this part, feel free, but I'm going to go ahead and take a stab at it. So the bill is written in the Assembly or the Senate, and we're going through this because I think a lot of us maybe don't remember this process. I certainly didn't, and I've been learning. So once the bill is written in the Assembly or the Senate, and that's why we elect our our people to represent us and write the bills that best serve our communities. So then it goes to the policy committee. And if I'm not mistaken, that's where we have been hearing the hearings right now, correct? That's where the bill's been heard? Okay. So right now we've been having the bills being heard in these various policy committee meetings. So from that point, that is when the committee decides what they're going to do with it, if it's going to proceed, if it's going to die, but it has to get through that first step. So we're going through that right now. And once it passes, the committee has to vote on it. And when the committee votes and it has a majority, it then goes to the fiscal committee to see if there's fiscal impact. I can't speak too much to this. If someone wants to, Brandon, do you want to talk about the fiscal committee, the fiscal impact piece a bit, or shall we just keep going? Keep going. Okay. So then after it goes to there, it goes for the whole House vote, and it needs majority or 2/3 vote if urgency or appropriations. So that's the part I'm going to be honest. I don't understand the urgency and appropriations part, but that's part of what we're going to be learning about. But this is just part of the legislative process. And from there, as we go on to the right, we see that it is the second House reviews the bill in committee and can amend the bill. So as we see, there is a lot that a bill has to go through. That's why our electeds have, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, up to early 20s bills. I think up to 30. I think 30 is probably about the max, and that's actually a very heavy load, but they come in with so many bills, and for them to make it all the way through, it has all this process. And this is also part of why when we invite our electeds to come out and visit us for every single thing going on, they're really busy in all these meetings trying to move things along, having the conversations with people, getting people to understand what the bill is about so that we can actually get something done together. And I think there's something really important to be said about that, because this is where that work really comes in, to work with one another to make something happen. Because Republicans and Democrats, fine, but we got to get work done. So this is one of the reasons I know that I've had some really wonderful discussions with our assembly member, actually. Everything aside, we're here to get work done. We're here to pass legislation. And this has been really interesting. I think these are the committee meetings where people have to come together and really look to each other and find those things we have in common to get things done. So from there, it has
I just want to let you know that Tina Andolina, I think that's the one you were waiting on, is here. She's joined the Zoom with us.
Wonderful. This is the perfect time to hand it over, because this is where it gets
tricky.
Tina should take it over. So Tina, let's see if we can get her on the screen.
Let me pin her. Hold on. Let's make sure she's connected to the audio. Give me just 1 second.
Okay.
She's connecting to her audio still. So,
wonderful.
Oh, wait, just a minute. Technology is exciting, team. So while she's connecting to audio, this box right here about amendments is so interesting. Almanise, and there she is, Tina. She is from the vehicle, on the move. This is the way business gets done in Sacramento. So, we're just talking about this slide right here that kind of has the steps of, how a bill gets to the end, to the governor's desk. And so we're right here at the part where we're talking about amendments. After the second House reviews the bill in committee, they can make amendments, and then, there's that back and forth. Do you want to speak a little bit to this and get us to the home stretch?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize for being late. The last meeting went long, and so I wasn't even able to get in front of a computer, but wanted to hop on. Yeah, so once the bill gets to the second House, those policy committees once again review the language in the measure and can offer amendments. And if they do, a good staffer will keep the other House, their original House, be it the Assembly or the Senate, in the loop with those amendments, because that bill will, if it's changed, so let's say it's a Senate bill, if it changes in the Assembly, it's going to have to go back again to the Senate to get approved again. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But yeah, that second House can change the measure again if the committee needs those amendments to pass the bill. So for example, if we've got a Senate bill, the bond, for example, which I'll talk about in a moment, we'll get through the Senate policy committees and then be heard on the Senate floor, and then do the entire thing over again. So the Natural Resources Committee in the Assembly could also ask for a set of amendments. And do you want me to just keep going on to the next process?
Actually,
The
can
next
I
step in the process?
just interrupt to introduce you a little bit more properly?
Yeah.
Hey, well, welcome. Thank you again. Cheers, Zoom. We show up wherever we can, and we have people actually even from out of the country joining us, which is fabulous. So Tina Andolina, thank you so much. You're the legislative director for our Senator Ben Allen. And Ben Allen, right? He represents the 24th district, which covers the West Side, Hollywood, South Bay, and Santa Monica Mountains, the mountain communities of Los Angeles County. And he's first elected in 2014. So he's coming up. He's on his third term now. And he chairs, as I think you referenced, the Senate's Environmental Quality Committee and co-chairs the legislature's Environmental Caucus. He's a member of the Legislative Jewish Caucus, chairs the legislature's Joint Committee on the Arts, and the Senate Select Committee on Aerospace and Defense. I think that's just a little summary of who we have represented us, and we're so grateful that you're here as the legislative director to speak to us. So thank you, and take it away, Tina.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there are other questions about the first part of the process, I'm happy to get into those as well. But just to pick up the process where we left it off in the second House committee, looking at the chart here, I noticed that you guys did highlight that bills that cost money go to the fiscal committee, what we call the appropriations committee. And that's the money step after the policy. So the policy committees review the policy in the bill. Does it meet the goals of the state? And they're looking at it from, is this good policy or bad policy? And a bill can go through several different policy committees. So for example, you could have a bill like the bond that goes through the Natural Resources Committee, and that committee will look at the substance of the bond when it comes to natural resources and the environment and make suggested amendments. Sometimes they're more than suggestions. They're things that you have to change in order to get the vote. And then another policy committee will look at a different aspect of the bill. So for example, with any kind of general obligation bond, those measures have to go through what's called the Governance and Finance Committee. And then they look at the bonded components of the bill. Is the money being moved in the right way? Do you have the right state agencies holding the money? Is the fiscal accountability pieces of the bond, are those pieces in place? So they're not looking at, is this measure helping with our climate change goals or our natural resources goals? They're looking at, are the pots of money structured appropriately? So they have a different view. After that, all bills that cost money go to the House's Appropriation Committee. The Senate and the Assembly both have an Appropriations Committee, and their job is simply to ask the question, can we afford this as a state? And this is where how a bill becomes a law deviates from what you see in the flow chart to what happens in real life. So how a bill becomes a law suggests that the Appropriations Committee votes on the bills that come before it. It's way trickier than that. The Appropriation Committee takes all the bills that cost a lot of money above a certain threshold and puts those all on one list, and in one day, in one hearing, determines which of those bills will pass and which of those bills will not. It's called the suspense file. And this is the most opaque piece of the entire process. And people ask us as staff all the time, what happened? Why did that bill die? We'd never have a good answer for them. The answer you would get if you asked the committee would be, well, it cost too much money. We could not afford it. It was not a priority. But that's not necessarily the case. If the bill has too much opposition, is contrary to leadership's policies, there are a bunch of other reasons that a bill can get derailed in the Appropriations Committee that are unrelated to cost. But if that happens, we never know about it. Nobody fesses up and says, I killed your bill in appropriations because you got out of the policy committee and we thought you shouldn't have. So that is a very tricky place to go. It is always better if your bill does not cost money, but it's very hard to make policy without costing money. So a lot of good bills go there, and several don't make it out. In lean budget times like this, we can expect that fewer bills will make it out of the Appropriations Committee. If you do get lucky enough to get out of the Appropriations Committee, then you go back to the full floor for a vote. So just like in the first House, where if you're a Senate bill, you go before the entire Senate. In the Assembly, you're taken up by the entire Assembly for a vote. If you are amended in that second House, you have to go back for concurrence. You cannot be amended again if you go back for concurrence. So if you're a Senate bill and you are amended in the Assembly, and you get out of the Assembly and you go back for concurrence, you cannot change that bill. So if the Senate did not like the changes that were made in the Assembly, you're out of luck. So that's why good staff will ensure that the first House policy committees are kept in the loop the entire way. And if you are lucky enough to get off of your original House again, so you get past that concurrence vote in the Senate, then you're sent down to the governor, where the governor has 30 days, basically that month, to sign or veto the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of measures that are sent to the governor at the end of the session every year. And that's the process. I'm happy to answer questions.
I will say, I'm just looking at the time. I think if we have questions about this, we'll do a quick scan, because I would love to move on to the bond, that piece, just to make sure we keep going. So if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat, and maybe we can see about getting them answered, because I know a lot of people are going to be we'll have a lot of answers with everybody coming along, so we'll get an answer. But at this time, thank you for explaining that, and please tell us about this bond. It's a little unclear. If you can just explain it to us. Perhaps if you can tell us where it is in the legislative process that you just explained, and what we can do to support.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much for inviting me on tonight to talk about the bond measure that Senator Allen has introduced. It is very exciting. So this is the third time a measure like this has been introduced in the past 3 sessions. So back in the 2019-2020 legislative session, we introduced SB 45. And the idea behind this was, hey, look, we know that we are seeing impacts to our communities up and down the state related to a warming climate. So in some parts of the state, we are seeing severe fires. We were seeing mudslides. We know that we're seeing this year, floods, water supply issues. We were faced with an extreme drought, sea level rise, different impacts up and down the state. We put together a bond that said, okay, we are going to borrow money so the state could invest in solutions, natural resources-based solutions, to help our communities address these impacts. Initially, we were looking at a $5-6 billion bond back in 2019. That was put on hold due to COVID, and then the measure was again reintroduced in 2021. And then the miraculous budget surplus happened, and instead of borrowing to invest in these investments that we wanted to see, these community protections, we instead were able to secure $10 billion over several years to address all of these issues, including electric vehicle infrastructure that was added on. So that was super exciting. So we put the bond on hold and said, look, if we can do this with general fund money, great, fantastic. And so we did. So then now the economy takes a downturn, and it is clear that we cannot do this through a feast and famine approach. Instead, we need to have a steady stream of investments that we can count on over the next 5-10 years to really address these issues. So now we're looking at, we reintroduced the general obligation bond. Right now we're looking at a $15 billion investment over a longer time horizon. And given what we've seen over the past several years, we're also refocusing to invest far more in water supply and capture. So ensuring that when we do have these really significant rains, we can capture that water and save more of it for lean times. So that's been very helpful. We've also shifted some of the investments to address a lot of the really great work that the Newsom administration has been doing around protecting habitat. So, you know, what's called the 30 by 30 planning. So that's been very exciting. So, and then we're also looking at building on the investments that were dedicated in the last couple of budget cycles. So we've learned a lot, but one of the things that was incredibly clear is that we cannot just count on budget surpluses to sustain the investments that are going to be necessary to address all of the climate impacts we're seeing. We have to put a bond in place, and it might feel like that's more expensive because we're borrowing money, but in reality, it gives us a much longer time horizon to plan accordingly and get the best bang for our buck and get the best projects in place. So right now, that bill is being heard in its second policy committee next week, so it will be heard in governance and finance. This is a great time for the bond because we just put a bunch of new language in SB 867. That should be in print either later tonight or tomorrow if you guys go to leginfo.com to check it out. It's really, spelling out the Senate's priorities, which is very exciting. So we expect that bill will get out of the Governance and Finance Committee next Wednesday. And then really, we are going to need the support of both houses and the governor's office. And so far, the governor has indicated a real willingness to partner with us on this. But because it's a bond, it does take a 2/3 vote. So, local communities up and down the state, like you guys, expressing support for the measure is actually incredibly meaningful. And this is the exact right time to do that.
Wonderful. So I guess we are in the end part then. So you said we can support it, and by doing so, we should call in, maybe do an impact statement, a community impact statement. What would be the best way that we can support as a club?
Oh, great question. So the way we track support for measures like this is it's very simple. It's writing a letter, and each committee has a portal where you can just upload that letter. I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm frozen. Where you can update that, where you can upload that letter electronically, and then that your support is registered, and all of the committee members see that support, and then it gets listed in the analyses. And so the analyses is the report that is sent to the legislators before they vote on a measure, so they can see who's supporting or opposing a measure. So you would get listed there, which is incredibly meaningful. Excellent.
Well, I think we can just, let's see, because we started a little bit late, do we have time for one quick question? Because I see that Senator Portantino just joined, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. If there's a question, how about this? How about if there's a question about this particular bond, please place it in the chat. And Tina, may I be able to engage with you further via email if we have any questions?
Absolutely. Questions on the bill or questions on the on any part of the process, I'm happy to answer.
Excellent. I hope it's okay if we kind of stay on task because we have 9 bills and I've coordinated people joining us. So thank you so much for making the time. And again, if anybody has any questions about the legislative process that we've gone over thus far or this particular bond measure, please do put it in the chat. We will make sure to get you an answer. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you. You guys have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you, Tina. So we do have Senator Portantino. He joined us. I'm going to pin you to the top, sir. Give me just a second. Add. Okay, there he is. And I'm going to jump over to the next slide for him. Hold on. Okay, there we go. I'm going to mute myself and do the intros.
Welcome, Senator Portantino. My name is Amani Sanati. I am the Vice President of Political Affairs of the Westchester-Playa Democratic Club. Thank you for joining us. I have to let you know that—
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's amazing. I see you're busy in the middle of everything. I'll do a brief intro because I know that there's a lot going on. But I will let you know that we shared the word with the Moms Demand Action chapter in South Bay, and they were especially excited because this particular bill that you're authoring is one of the 2 bills being endorsed by Moms Demand Action, which is very important. It's not about moms. Also, every town for gun safety. We are all concerned about what's been gun violence. So California's 25th state Senate district, which is on the other side of the 210 freeway, Sunland to Hunga to Upland. I know you proudly represent the Rose Bowl area, and you've done the Griffith Park area, and you support public education, mental health. I'm in mental health, huge appreciation. Public education, our president is, and I'm as well. You're covering a lot of bases of things we really have a lot of concern and care and love for. So thank you so much. And please tell us about this bill.
Well, thank you for letting me talk about it. It's SB2, and it's an important bill that was drafted in the wake of the Bryan, the Supreme Court decision that ruled most states' concealed carry laws unconstitutional because we largely had a discretionary component. So if you were a sheriff, you could deny somebody a concealed carry permit on discretionary grounds. And the Supreme Court said you can't do that. You have to have concrete criteria to regulate concealed carry permits. And so what SB2 does is it says, for example, if you have a history of posting violent things on your Facebook page, if you have a history of violence, that's a concrete criteria. You need 3 character witnesses to say that you're worthy of the responsibility of a concealed carry permit. And so the bill does essentially 3 things. One, it codifies the criteria of who's eligible to carry a weapon. And then second, the Supreme Court said you can have restricted places. So for example, you don't need to take your weapon to Dodger Stadium. You don't need to take a weapon to your daughter's AYSO soccer game. And so we have a robust list of exempted places, schools, courthouses, parks. And so the Supreme Court said we can do that. And then the third thing it does is it emphasizes the need for safe storage of your weapons. I actually wrote California's safe storage legislation. If you listen to President Biden, he talks about how important it is to have safe storage on a national level. Well, we have that in California because I wrote that bill. And so SB2 is sponsored by Governor Newsom, Attorney General Rob Bonta, and I'm honored to be the author of it. And as you mentioned, Moms Demand, Everytown, Brady, all of the serious gun control advocacy groups are supporting it and making it a top priority. And right now, because of that decision, we have no statewide controls over concealed carry permitting, and sheriffs can give them out pretty much to anybody they want with no criteria or no thought process. And as we know, with 40 million guns in circulation and the proliferation of weapons in circulation, it doesn't make us more safe. It actually makes us in more danger. And UC Davis has a ton of statistics on why that's true and why states that have lax concealed carry permitting laws and lax gun control laws actually have more gun violence per capita than California, which has strong laws. So we know our laws work, and we know this is an important piece that needs to be filled because the Supreme Court, unfortunately, a conservative Supreme Court ruled against the prior legislation. And so hopefully you'll support it. And I'm happy that you're discussing this important piece of legislation.
Well, thank you. I mean, we already did vote to endorse this bill. So that's why.
Oh, great.
Yes, absolutely. It's so critical and necessary. So that is happening. We'd love to know where it is in the legislative process and what can we do to see this through? How can we as a club support this moving forward or as individuals?
Well, obviously it's in the suspense file, and I happen to chair the Appropriations Committee, so I can't telegraph what's going to happen to the bill. But what I can say is I can't imagine that a bill authored by the chair of the committee, supported by the governor and the attorney general, wouldn't have a good path to success getting out of the state Senate. Last year, we came up a couple votes short in the assembly. And so I think just, articulating your strong support with your assembly member and keep the pressure on folks. I think it's going to pass and get on the governor's desk. And so your advocacy is important to that conversation. And certainly, feel free to contact your senators as well. But, I feel pretty confident on the path out of the Senate. And I think if we make it a simple majority bill in the assembly, I think it'll pass there as well. The question is whether we make it an urgency bill, which requires a 2/3 vote, or we keep it as a simple majority. And I'll make that decision in the assembly once we do our vote card on everybody. But clearly, let your representatives know that you're passionate about it and that the club supports it.
Okay, I have one small question, and then I think we have a few minutes. If you do have a few minutes, I was thinking take a couple questions. Okay, my quick question is, we know our assembly member and our state senator will support this. We have Senator Ben Allen and we have Assembly Member Tina McKinnor. So they're going to support this. What do you recommend we can do to help maybe another senator or another? So how can we use our voice otherwise? Because we want to be most effective. And I know that not everybody will be on board. What do you recommend?
Well, I think last year we came up short with Assemblymember Arambula in the assembly. And so if you have any friends of his, and just let him know politely how important it is to you that he supports it. I think, just any neighboring assembly members that you're right. Tina and Ben are I have no issues. They're both, I would be shocked if they didn't support it. Ben supported it last year, and I think Tina is also going to be good. So I just think, talk to your neighboring assembly members. Just make sure that they know you're watching and keeping track. Patrick O'Donnell was the key vote last year that didn't vote for it, and he's no longer in the assembly, so I would have had to lobby him. But he's gone. Jim Cooper's no longer there as well. He didn't vote for it. I think the most important one that's still from last year would be Joaquin Arambula didn't support it. So politely, just let him know you'd like his support on it this year.
Thank you.
I see a hand. I see Liz has her hand up.
Let's go, Liz.
You are good at this, Senator. He sees my hand. Thank you. My question for you, because we are learning about the process and how all of this works, is you said that it might become an urgency bill, or it might just need a simple majority. What would make a bill become either way, where it needs that 2/3 vote or it just needs that majority vote? Why would that happen? And when is that decision?
Why is that relevant? So that's a decision for me to make, obviously with the sponsors. And an urgency bill, and the difference between an urgency bill and a regular bill, an urgency bill goes into effect the day the governor signs it. A regular bill goes into effect on January 1st. And so if we feel we have 54 votes in the assembly to make it an urgency, then it would go into effect the moment the governor would sign it. If we don't have 54 votes, then it becomes a 41 vote bill, and then it would go into effect in January. So that's the net effect. So we'll do a vote card to determine. And last year we had the 54 votes, and then one person had COVID and didn't show up, and then Patrick O'Donnell used that opportunity to pull off the bill for other political reasons, and so we had 53 votes and not 54. And because California has a 72-hour rule, we couldn't amend the bill because it was the very last day of session. And so there wasn't 72 hours to amend the bill into a non-urgency bill. And that's a phrase in the bill. And because you're changing the bill, requires it to wait 72 hours before action. This year, because it's the first year of a 2-year session, if we make it an urgency bill and we fall 1 vote short, then we can amend the bill on the floor, turn it into a simple majority bill, and then pass it 3 days later. The question will become whether, the governor and the attorney general and myself want to risk having it doesn't look good if a bill goes up and it doesn't pass. And so we have to be rock certain that it's going to pass on 54 votes if we're going to take it up as an urgency. And it maybe we just play it safe and we make it a 41 vote bill. And there's no question that it's going to get 41 votes. The question is whether it gets 54.
That totally answers it. Thank you. And I don't see anything else in the chat. So if anybody else does have a question for Senator Portantino, just raise your virtual hand and we'll get you unmuted.
By the way, did you see I made it SB2? I did that sort of for the poetry of the Second Amendment and SB2. I requested that bill number. I'm a poet, so I like poetry.
I love that. All right. Any other questions for the senator?
All right. Well, thank you guys for taking a position and then offering me the opportunity to share the nuts and bolts of the bill. And I really appreciate your advocacy and your interest.
Yes, thank you so much for making the time for us. And now that we are in contact, if you need more support at any point with this or anything moving forward, we appreciate you and we want to support it. So let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Moving along. We are actually doing really well with the schedule. So next we have did Ms. Michelle Persoff link come in yet? We have a representative from Assembly Member. Let's see. Sorry, Liz, you have the schedule right in front of you. I'm not sure if I have it correct in front of me. Is it Assembly Member Bryan's office next?
I have Sean from McKinnor's office at 7:15. Is Sean on? See, or is it Brandon from McKinnor's office? Let's see. Give us just a second, team.
How about we take a brief 1-minute break if anybody needs to get water or something, and I'm just going to review our notes to see where we are to make sure we're on.
I mean,
Oh, Brandon's here.
yeah,
Brandon?
yeah. I mean, I didn't know if Sean was doing it or I'm doing it. I was asked to do it, but I can gladly go over the two bills that were presented. I know Omni sent if that goes with the schedule. It's up to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Do that. You make sure to pin you. Hold on, Brandon. Give me 1 second so I can bring you to the top.
No problem.
Technology.
Yeah, actually, just hold on one quick moment too. I'm confirming right here the time.
I got it. All right, let me put Brandon at the top. Hold on, guys.
Yes, I do have him listed for 7:15.
Perfect.
So yep, and we're going to discuss. So
Perfect.
if we want to wait just a minute or we want to start with Brandon, we can go either way. Because it
Okay.
is technically minutes early. We have 2 minutes, so we could take a quick 2-minute break.
I think we should get going.
I'm ready to go. No problem.
All right. And then, well, we're family, and you're all our family. So he'll pick up and you can work together wherever it makes sense. So here we go. Brandon, you're here. Welcome. This is from Assembly Member Tina McKinnor's office, our Assembly Member in this district, AD 61. And she has 2 bills here that we are going to be, that we've endorsed. And one of them is AB1, which she discussed before, which everybody seems very excited about. It's about unionizing the legislative staff. So I think it's pretty straightforward what that one is about. And I'm pulling up the other one. It's about the birth certificate for those who are exiting the criminal justice system. And yes, that's a very important one as well, because it seems like something that it's those small details that not everybody thinks about. But when you are in that situation, it makes or breaks your life. And it takes people who are talking to people in these situations. That's why it's important to speak with your community and speak with the people who are experiencing these issues. And that's when it came up. So yes, when she mentioned this is a hurdle for to re-entry. And that's why we're really excited that she's authoring that bill as well. And I see Sean just joined us. So Sean, Brandon, thank you both for being here. I will let you both take it away.
Yeah, so I could speak on AB1. So AB1 is very simple, like you said. It just simply allows legislative staff the ability to collectively bargain. Right now, we are the only state workers that are barred from collectively bargaining. And the weird thing is about this too, is that we have to ask our employers, the legislators, that to allow us to collectively bargain. There have been about 4 or 5 different iterations of this. 3 or 4 times Lorena Gonzalez has run this in the past, and it has died in the PERS committee. Last year, Assemblymember Mark Stone got an amended bill in the Senate, got it through the Senate, and again, it died in an Assembly PERS committee. This year, the chair that was of the Assembly PERS committee left, and Assemblymember Tina McKinnor was appointed the chair of PERS committee. So it is now going through her committee, and we are excited to hear it on April 26th. We are going to have, so there is going to be the ability for people to call in to this committee to voice their support. That call-in information will be available the day before, but for sure the day of the committee. So if you guys want to watch it, the call-in information will be up there, and you guys could call in support, which will be very much appreciated, because a lot of current staff support this bill, but they do not feel comfortable coming out and voicing that support because they might get backlash from their employer or from other people that are watching this committee. So last year, when it was heard in the Senate committee, there was about 30 or 40 staffers or people that have called, and some staffers that called anonymously saying that they do support the bill, and it was extremely powerful. There were so many people and staffers that were calling that they cut us off because they did not have enough time. Assemblymember Tina McKinnor does not plan on cutting off that Me Too testimony. So please call in and really show that support to the assembly that people are watching and people do care about this bill. Do you want me to talk about where we'll go next, or?
Well, Brandon's here too. Brandon, did you have anything to add to that? Because I'm really moved by what you just said, coming from a system where, well, I was in the jail system for over a decade. That's where I worked, and people were afraid to even make anonymous statements about anything. So that's quite profound. And it sounds like this is something that we really do need to get behind, mark our calendars, call in on the committee, and voice support. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Brandon, what do you want to add to this? Because this is powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean is the perfect person to have on here dealing with legislation and be able to explain. I think from my point of view, where I could just explain as life as a staffer, I've been working in the legislature now as a staffer for 9 years. And this bill is extremely powerful and extremely important to staffers because one, it shows that we're noticed and recognized with respect, and understanding that some of these long hours that we do, time away from our families, if you're trying to start a family, whatever your life is outside of work, it's not recognized sometimes because it's long hours. And it's okay because we choose this line of work and we understand that what we're doing is helping the community. But this bill here, it just gives us a voice. And so why it's extremely important, and I think it's getting so much support, is because staffers all over recognize that we don't want to leave the legislator to find better work. We like what we do here, but we just want to be recognized and have that voice. And so, like you said, this bill is extremely powerful. And working for some woman that's taking up a bill like this is just, it makes me want to work harder for her and understand that to get this support. And thank you guys so much for sponsoring it and gathering that support. And it wants us to continue to do the work that we're doing. And so,
I just want to add to I was the staffer for the previous iteration with Assemblymember Mark Stone, and a lot of staffers came up to me and they told me that they want to stay in the building. They want to help create policy, but they can't imagine themselves staying because their wages are extremely low and they could see what they could make on the outside. And if we are able to collectively bargain, we could up those wages. Just workplace protections. During the pandemic, we had no say in what our workplace was. It was either that no one was in and we're all working remote, which was fine. And then they would say, now 2 staffers need to come into the building at all time and our offices need to be open. And we had no say at all saying that, do we feel comfortable allowing this to happen? And we simply just want to say in our workplace. And then COVID cases would get higher and the Senate or the Assembly would have different policies and we just wouldn't know what is happening. And we just really need that. We need workplace protections, and this bill would do that for us.
Yeah, no, this is great. And I'm impressed that you're right. Our assembly member took this on and she's going. So Liz, I see your hand up.
First of all, I really want to thank you guys for coming. I think voice from staffers on a bill about organizing staffers is super, super important. So thank you both for being here tonight. My wondering is, I'm a working mom and I work 8 to 5, sometimes earlier and longer. When bills are at a hearing, is that something that district staff or, Capitol staff could post onto social media? So it's call now, right? Something like that, where it's kind of like this is the time, here's the number, call now. Because I know Amadis and I have been working on calling in for different things. And it's one of those hard things. Like I'm working, but if I'm on my break and I'm scrolling Twitter and I was like, oh, it's right now, hold on, let me call right now while I'm trying to eat a sandwich and make photocopies, I will always call in. But it's hard for us, when we're working or living busy lives to do that. So what's something you can give us a little tidbit on how we can track it, and then also when to call, now's the time?
Yeah, so there is a Twitter account at CA Union Rights that is following this bill very closely, and they they in the past they have posted call now, this is the call-in number, or in the beginning of the hearing they'll be like, this is the call-in number, you guys could stay on. So they are going to be updating people on that, because a lot of staffers do follow that. So if you do want to be updated, you could follow that Twitter account. And then you could check when the hearing is. So the hearing will be on the 26th at, I'm pretty sure, 9 a.m. And you could just log in, you could see what is happening. It will be the call-in information will be up there. And then we will be taking up AB1 as the last bill, just so everybody could get their bills heard in that committee, because this is going to be a longer, longer bill to be heard.
And do you know the website that we would check that on, or is it just the Ledge Info one?
Yes, so it would be the California State Assembly's website, and then they have the hearings for the day, and then you could go and then you could press watch on there, and then it will pop up for you. You could also type in Assembly PERS Committee, Assembly California PERS Committee, and then the hearing information will be up there too.
All right, that answered my question.
Yeah, well, in my experience today, for example, calling in for AB 1595 ACA 4, you're really, it's a, you have to, you can listen and find busy work, but again, it's very difficult. What if you're seeing a client? What if it's hard to figure that out. So I think it's just we'll have to communicate with one another and give a little text and say, hey, call in now, it's time, and we'll all just have to tackle this together, because really it's just a matter of, well, we had 30 seconds, I think, to speak in the last couple times I called in. So it's really not a lot of time that you're actually doing the vocalizing, but it's the waiting and figuring out. So collectively, we'll support the collective bargaining. Bargaining, I'm sorry. I like my puns here, but yes, I think we'll have to work on that one together, because that's just, if there's an extra way or an easier way, please do tell. But I think you just kind of have to listen in and follow, right?
Yeah, and Amanis, I have your number, and that's part of this, the teamwork, like with the Capitol staff and district staff. Like, I feel like that falls on the district staff as far as communicating with our local clubs, our local neighborhood council, city council, whatever that is, to pass that information along. So that's where we'll be into play. And we'll be doing our outreach day of, like the Capitol team. We do a call every day. So the Capitol team keeps us well informed. So when we know the hearing's coming up, we'll be sending that out information. And day of, like, I could just send you a quick text, say, hey, just remind the club, today's the day, here's the time, here's the link, whatever it is, we'll be able to relay the message on the district side as well.
That would be fabulous. I didn't want to suggest more and put more on your plate. NAS that, and it was very effective. So please do, and I will disperse.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, are there any other questions on AB1? Liz, do you see any hands up? No. Okay. So shall we move on to AB 974?
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys.
So incarcerated persons, certified record of life.
Yeah, so what we've been finding out, sorry, my dog is very needy. As we've been finding out is that incarcerated individuals, when they leave, they do not have a ID, and that is very essential to getting housing, that's important to getting jobs, applying for benefits, anything like that. So what we have been seeing is that Senator Roth passed a bill a couple of years ago giving IDs to people, but if you don't have the all of the documents, then you're not able to apply for that ID while you're incarcerated. So allowing people to get a birth certificate while they are leaving the incarceral system, this allows them to go apply, makes it easier for them to apply for a California ID. Yeah, Brandon, if you want to add anything.
No, but you touched on what I was going to say. So this one, yeah.
I have a question, Sean, maybe you can answer. I saw on the California Ledge page that it was referred to committee, assembly appropriations, and the next hearing was going to be today. Did that end up getting heard today, or it's got pushed?
So it went on to suspense file.
Oh, suspense file. Okay.
So the next here, so the suspense file will be May 18th.
May 18th, we'll update our slide.
Yeah, May 18th. I think that is if that is a Thursday, it's that week of the Thursday.
How,
And what can
Oh, go
happen once it gets to the suspense file, Sean?
Yeah, so once it gets to the suspense file, we wait and we see if it gets off of suspense. So they will be all the bills that go to the suspense file that exceed $150,000 for the state go to the suspense file, and then appropriations committee decides which bills get out essentially, and everybody listens in on May 18th, and we see which bills get out and which bills are held.
And do they take comment during that hearing, or it's just listen in?
No, just listen in.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
may I ask how it's been received? Because I feel like whenever it comes to incarcerated people, there's, you figure the usuals are going to be against it. But what people don't realize, like when I worked there, I've had so many people in our community reach out telling me they have someone there. Like, it's everyone. This is our community. We have to recognize it. So I'm curious, has there been a lot of pushback? How has it been received?
There hasn't been a lot of pushback. People have been worried about cost, but we do have a budget play with this bill asking for money for the public health department so they could process these birth certificates easier and faster. I think people are starting to realize that if someone is incarcerated, we have to take care of them and we have to provide them with the necessary tools to succeed once they are released. So it has been much easier to introduce these types of bills.
Good. And that's great news. Let's see here. So is there anybody else that has any questions about either of these two bills? Because we are a little bit early on schedule, but we can switch things around. So that's the beauty. But I want to make sure we get our questions answered from Sean and Brandon. Do you see any other hands, Liz? Okay. I think, did we already discuss how we can support? Is there, we have to wait on this one. There's not a concrete way to support it just yet, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So we will be doing the work for Appropriations Committee, talking to the consultants. They have most of the power in this committee to decide which bills get out. So yeah, hopefully it does get on the floor. This is one of our priority bills. So we are hoping that it gets out. We have not heard any issues regarding this bill. So once hopefully it does get out, then you guys could start making calls to your elected officials, telling them that you do support this bill. That really helps because not a lot of people call offices. And when people do call offices, people do notice and they will write it down and they will let their lunch director, the staffer that handles that issue area, or even the chief of staff and the member know. And it's, again, extremely helpful to do that.
Mhm.
So you just said something very important. People wonder, what does it matter if I call? But you're telling us that it makes a difference. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, as the district office, when we call, what I've done in the past is how we collect information is your name, first and last name, zip code, where you're calling from, if you want to tell me the club that you're in or whatever the case may have you. And what we do at the end of the day, each day in our district office usually is we pass information up to the Capitol, let them know this is the calls, this is where they're coming from, the areas, these are the concerns, whether it's support or not. And so it just always helps just on both sides, from the district and the Capitol, to keep our team informed so they know where we're going moving forward as far as the legislation, how much support we actually have from the community.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So then we will be in touch. I mean, unless there's any other questions, we will be in touch on how we can support both of these bills. But yes, I think that's it. So thank you so much, both of you, for making the time to tune in. As you can see, this is off hours, staffers. This is why we want to advocate to take care of you, because you have to be available all the time. And we are witnessing this right now. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. So Liz, I think since we're a little bit ahead of schedule, since what we can do, because we're slated at 7:40 for our next guest to join us, and that is from Assembly Member Isaac Bryan's office, Michelle Persoff, but I don't believe she's on yet, correct?
She just joined as if she heard her ears burning.
Ah,
So hold on, let her get connected to the audio. Michelle,
Okay.
we literally said your name and you popped up on Zoom, so you knew we were ready for you.
Oh, wow. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
well, actually,
1 second. Hold on, Michelle. Let's get our slide. You gotta have a good shot of Isaac Bryan. You gotta have a good shot of your assembly member. So there's the
Thank
slide
you.
of the bill, and you can go ahead and do the intro. Amanise, go ahead.
Okay, yes, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us. I know that you're also showing us why we need to support our staffers. You're showing up at this time, you're at the airport, right? Yes, wonderful. This is
Yes, I
Michelle.
am.
Thank you. So Isaac Bryan, Assemblymember Bryan represents California's 55th Assembly District, which is the Baldwin, it's our neighbor district. Baldwin Hills, Crenshaw District, Culver City, Ladera Heights, Mar Vista, Delray Palms, Pico Robertson, all those parts of LA and more. And he is on the chair, well, we witnessed him today. He's the chair of the Elections Committee, fighting to protect the right to vote and keep our elections free and fair. And he also serves as the chair of the Assembly's first Select Committee on Poverty and Economic Inclusion. Thank you for that. In 2022, he was elected secretary and treasurer of the California Legislative Black Caucus, and he's also vice chair and founding member of the Renters Caucus, which is new. Founding member, right? This is new stuff. So thank you again so much for coming and representing our assembly member. And we have you here to talk about what was heard today, which I actually called in to support, and I'm very excited to say that, for AB 1595 and ACA 4. A lot of acronyms and numbers, and I'm looking to you to clarify what this means, and if you can tell us where things left off today, and then lastly, what we can do to further support.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you for tuning in today. So first, I think I'll start with ACA stands for Assembly Constitutional Amendment. AB is Assembly Bill. And so if a bill were to start in the Senate, it would be SB, Senate Bill. And then similarly, it would be SCA, Senate Constitutional Amendment. So this all kind of starts with, how did he decide this was the time to bring this bill? And because of the great work that you all do, I want to emphasize how this would not be possible if we didn't get a very strong, progressive group of members into the assembly with this latest great movement. I'm not going to say resignation, because the point of this is we got a bunch of great supporters in the assembly this year after the November election, where so many people, so many seats were open. And so with that, as well as the fact that Assemblymember Bryan is the chair of Elections Committee, it seems like the mood was right to bring this idea that he's kind of had in his back pocket all along. Criminal justice reform is one of the
boarding T 21 through 60.
Foundational topics that Assemblymember Bryan has always put into his work. And he is a data person, and the data shows that when you restore voting rights to incarcerated persons, the change we want to see shows up. Not only is it making the voting process more fair and representative, but the studies show 50% of people who
again, if you're just
vote
joining
who
the
were
820,
incarcerated,
18
are less likely to
you need the special taxes items. Also, these slides are very cool.
95%.
Be solicited to.
Can you not hear me?
Gate check to your final destination. If you have a big roller bag, we'll gate check it to your final destination for free, no problem. Come on up and here and see
She
it.
is calling us from the airport. She's waiting to get
Oh
on the
gosh,
plane.
I'm so sorry.
No. We're just gonna let that announcement go, and then we'll jump
I
back.
didn't know that you could hear them. The flight before 9 is leaving right now, so it's not a great moment.
No worries. We
C-130
understand
can
that.
line up on the right side.
Hold on real quick.
So 95% of people who are incarcerated are going to get out. Eventually, that's a quieter voice, so I'm going to try and talk over it. So data shows, and I think the number is 10,000 veterans are incarcerated.
I'm taking group A,
So
1
people-
through 30, A1 through 30, well,
People who have fought for our country are not allowed to vote in its elections. It seems fundamentally unfair, wrong. And
I'm taking only group A,
on top of this, these many people who are incarcerated are parents. They can't even vote in their children's school board elections. So people, and if you were listening to the hearing today, one of the witness testimonies spoke about how when you're on the inside, you feel more secluded, more apart from the rest of the world. When you restore the right to vote, people feel like they can take a part in the world that they will eventually be rejoining, and the world that we are trying to get them to assimilate into naturally, and that this is a fundamental step forward for that to be achieved properly. So today, what happened was elections committee hearing. Oh,
60,
um,
older C, yeah.
so that's ACA 4. What will happen in umbrella terms, once, hopefully, when it passes out of the state legislature and goes through the assembly and then through the Senate, because it is a constitutional amendment, we are basically taking out what was put in the 70s, which was not allowing incarcerated persons to vote. Currently, there are certain people who are incarcerated who are allowed to vote. Incarcerated persons are allowed to vote in Maine, Vermont, Washington, DC, and Puerto Rico. And there are other countries across the world that give incarcerated persons the right to vote. Israel, Canada, Japan, and the list goes on. So once the state legislature passes this, it goes to the ballot. It would be, if it passes out of the legislature in this session, then it goes to this November ballot. And all of California gets to vote on whether or not they want to restore the right to vote to incarcerated persons. Now, in tandem, we have a companion bill, which is 1595, AB 1595. And so last year, there was a predecessor to this, which ended gerrymandering in prison voting. So what was happening before was, if you are able to vote, you would be registered to vote where your prison is, not where you're from. So if you get moved to Northern California when you're incarcerated, then you would have been voting in Northern California. And last year, we passed a bill to stop that. There was a loophole that 1595 is seeking to fix. So now you will be able to register in your last voluntary address, I believe is the term that we use. So if you had been moved, if your prison location moved, then that's why the voluntary language is important, because that, when you get moved, is not voluntary. So this will allow you to register to vote to your last pre-incarceration address. So that passing of AB 1595 is contingent upon ACA 4. So that brings us to today, was Elections Committee. And as I said, Assemblymember Bryan is the chair of elections. And he had, I think, maybe 4 total bills today, actually. And these were 2 of them. So they passed out and they are going to go on to appropriations. And appropriations is where bills are assessed for their financial impact. And then we move on to the Senate and then hopefully onto the ballot. And where you all can come in, we would love to have your support. We would love to have a support letter. If you are so inclined to do so, I would connect you with our legislative director, who is the staffer on ACA 4 and AB 1595. And then you go from there. We love Me Too's. We love it when everybody is following the progress of our bills. And we're really grateful for your interest. And thank you for letting me speak on them.
Wow. Well, thank you. I think, yes, we have already voted to endorse the bill. And it was really interesting when I called in today. There were so many other Democratic clubs and organizations. It was overwhelmingly supported by the calls that I heard. And obviously it was majority voting. I think it was 5-2. Was that how it passed today?
You know, at some point during those call-ins, I got asked to go into a meeting. So I don't know.
I think it was either 6-2 or 5-2. I don't remember how many were on the committee, but it was just the 2 that were expected not to support it that didn't support it. So yes, so we do want to be connected to see how we can follow this along and further support. And if you can, this, please do. We'd appreciate that very much.
That's great. Thank you so much.
I see a hand up, Liz.
I always have a question. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. And if the ACA, if this constitutional amendment does get on the California ballot in November, you know, elections are expensive, right? So when people are like, when an assembly member gets their bill and it gets all the way to the ballot, right? How does that process work in the fact that, you know, there needs to be ads and all of those things that happen? Is that just something that organizations fundraise for? I guess I'm asking a broader question because I always wonder, right, when something comes from a bill or something like that, and then it gets to the ballot, how does it always work? It seems like sometimes some special interests get involved to make sure that things get across the finish line. So I'm wondering, you know, I'm sure people always start with the end in mind. So in a case like this, where it's for, you know, incarcerated people, what are some thoughts about if it gets to the ballot, how that process works, and what are some other kind of big supporters that we're thinking about if it gets there?
Yeah. So you're right. Once we get past the legislature, a lot of money needs to come into play, and then we kind of kick into high gear. The sponsors of the bill, Initiate Justice, I think are it's Initiate Justice and Ella Baker Center. I think maybe the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. They are going to be the sort of the initial organization that we are going to have, I think, when we're building up the coalition and organizing for the ballot. As far as like hard organization that we're doing right now, I think the mood, from what I understood when I had asked this question not long ago, was let's focus on the legislature first, and then once we get out, we're going to readjust. But that said, Assemblymember Bryan is not new to ballot initiatives. He got his feet wet, you could say, with Measure J in LA. And he was one of the lead organizers behind it. And his background is organizing. So I'm not sure exactly what the plans are, or, I mean, I'm almost confident that there are some thoughts that have gone into it, but I don't know if there's any concrete plans happening yet. But I know that once we get to that point, we're probably going to be moving, or the interests that are going to be able to support it, because I'm not honestly sure what the parameters that him from his office are. So I don't want to overstep and misspeak, but once we get there, there will be a large push, and I'm sure that we would be reaching out in one way or another.
Awesome. I just want to make sure I have the names right. It's Initiate Justice and the Ella Baker Center. Is that it?
Yeah. It's Ella, ALLA, Baker, BAKER.
Well, and I will say your communication system is already on point, because I did get a text today that said, "Are you going to call in?" And that's what I want to keep doing, right? And that's when I knew, okay, well, here we go. So we'll be doing more of that for sure. So thank you.
Good. Yeah, I think Initiate Justice is pretty good at organizing. And I'm kind of excited to see what they do and what they have planned.
All right. So I think Naomi, are there any other questions about the ACA, AB, any of this while we have her to answer them?
And I also realized, I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Michelle Persoff. I'm Assemblymember Bryan's senior field representative. I'm also on his ledge team. I staff the environment bills, but as a field representative, I kind of run the gamut.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time and are you headed to Sacramento or coming home? I forget.
I'm coming home. I was not in the room today for ACA 4. I was in the office, but I was helping out.
Thank you for doing it. And yeah, there was a pause in the meeting because there was a lot of people outside. There was a lot of support. You couldn't really tell what was happening when I listened again. So I'm sure you're very excited. I hope you were there for that part, but there was a lot of excitement.
I was in a meeting and I looked, there are a couple TVs in the office, and I glanced at one and I saw something happening, and I was wondering what was going on.
Well, that was exciting to witness on my end, or in my little nook, and then you there. So great.
Yeah,
well,
he loves having big support.
Well, he got it, and we want to keep seeing it through. So yeah. Liz, is there anything else that you wanted to ask before we let her continue on for the rest of her journey?
No, I think that's it. And then no questions in the chat unless anybody has something before Michelle gets to take a breath and relax before the plane ride.
All right. Well, Michelle, thank you so very much for taking the time on your off time to join us today and to educate us. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this, our big thing for our club is the 3 E's. We want to engage, educate, and empower people to act, to support, to do the work that we need. So thank you for helping us get there.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I used to live in Playa, so
Yay. And it's just, I mean, we're all in this together. And I think we realize this when it comes down to these votes, when it comes down to the work that gets done together. We have our representative, but we got to work with everyone. So thank you.
yeah, we're across the street. Yeah, if you ever you want to reach out again, don't hesitate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we won't. Have a wonderful night. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so it is 7:52. We have someone joining us next at 8. That is Assemblymember Alex Lee's staffer. But what I think we can do, Liz, if it makes sense, perhaps we can put either Assemblymember Gabriel's bill, which is the other firearm bill that's also endorsed, or we can do Senator Menjivar's video, which is about 2.5 minutes. Or we can take a break, whatever you recommend.
Let's do the video. So let me get out of the slide deck and then I'll pull it up for us.
And I will give you the rundown as you're pulling it up. I'll give our lovely crowd here the update of what this is about. So Senator Caroline Menjivar, who is a fellow social worker. So of course, I'm very excited about that as a social worker from my alma mater. And I have to point out, when she was first early in her campaign, even our former professors were saying, "Oh, Manish, she's a long shot." Well, guess what? She's senator now, and it's quite amazing. So never give up on the long shots. Never underestimate the long shots. So Senator Menjivar, let me pull up her bio. She was elected in 2022 to represent the cities of Burbank, San Fernando, and the communities of Arleta, Canoga Park, Lake Balboa, other side over there in the valley. And she is on, let's see. I might have to hold off on the committees. I wrote them down today. I don't have them right now. There was a bunch. I'll get back to what committee she's on. But we decided to endorse 2 of her bills. And the 2 bills that we decided to endorse were basically very much related to social work issues. One of them, and she had told me personally that she just, the hunger cliff, she's very much concerned about mothers who rely on CalFresh SNAP benefits to feed their families. And I can tell you as a mother, on some of these parenting pages, I've seen people complain about this and be concerned, like, my benefits are running out. I don't have enough money to feed my kids. What can we do? And I've been trying to inject where I can. What you can do is call your senator or show the support for this, because there are people trying to fix that. And Senator Menjivar recognizes those needs, and she's trying to fix those issues specifically for families that are in need of some of the basic services. So this is SB 600, which is the CalFresh Minimum Benefit Adequacy Act of 2023. This bill would require the California Department of Social Services to provide additional CalFresh nutrition assistance, ensuring all participating households receive a minimum monthly benefit of $50. So $50 is really that's what it comes down to, but it takes someone recognizing the importance of it, authoring the bill, and so she did. So, and the other bill that we were that we endorsed is something that has come up in so many conversations, and it's for menstrual equity, something so simple. I mean, for people who are struggling, has anybody gone down when I was at the store the other day, all the menstrual products and the products for babies were locked up. They were locked up. You have to have a lock and key to get into this area to access these things, because they are of immense value. They cost a lot. And obviously the burden is on a very specific population, mostly women. So very rightly so, she introduced SB 260, which is the Menstrual Equity Act. And it's basically just to give a little more finances to people who are in need to be able to afford these necessities. So let's watch her tape. And I will say, we need to get Westchester out there, which is why I'm excited about our WPDC new logo, because people can't really get the name Westchester right. When I was introduced up north, they said Winchester, and I think Senator Menjivar misheard what the name of the city is. So I'm just cautioning you and also encouraging us to get out there and tell people we are Westchester and Playa. So Thank you, Liz, if you want to go ahead and do the video.
Go ahead and grab it and then let me know how the audio is. It's short, but it's awesome. So let me get it pulled up. Hold on, guys.
Okay, can't hear the audio, so we might have to start it again.
Hold on, un momento.
Uh,
Technology. Hold on, guys.
Bio break time if you want to get a quick sip of water. Oh, we
Me
figured this
too.
out.
Hold on.
Hi, Westchester-Playa Dem Club. This is Senator Caroline Menjivar. I'm sorry I can't be with you all today. I have another event, but I wanted to make sure you heard from me why I'm so thankful that you're going to get involved in two of my bills. So SB 600 is so important right now because we know that people, families of 1 or 2 are only getting about $23 for CalFresh to be able to buy food. You and I both know that's nowhere near enough what they need to survive. So what I'm trying to do is increase that from $23 to $50 a month. And that's not enough. I get it, but it's a good starting point. This is going to disproportionately impact our seniors, our students who are already struggling. So as of 2 days ago, SB 600 passed out of the Human Services Committee. I'm excited for that. And the next step for it is going to be appropriations on coming up soon. Now, what you can do for that is send in your support to appropriations. Senator Portantino is the chair of that. Make sure you call his office, make sure you write in to show your support. The second bill, SB 260, is up in appropriations on April 24th. So already passed out of all the policy committees. The next thing is for, again, Senator Portantino to push it out of there. So I'm asking for the same thing here is send your support to the Appropriations Committee because SB 260 is also looking to help our most vulnerable through the CalWorks program. Because I'm just asking to ensure that people on CalWorks get some extra benefits to be able to purchase their menstrual products. Because we know that that's not something we can opt out of as women, as menstruating individuals. We need these items as a basic necessity. So to ensure that CalWorks recipients get $20 to purchase menstrual products every month, I need you to come out and support it through, again, sending letters. Call it in. You don't have to come up here to Sacramento. Just voice your support and through those digital matters. I am so excited to have your support. Thank you for standing with me on this, and I hope we can be in person one day soon.
Yay. Okay, there we go. Go ahead, Amanis.
That's very exciting. Yes, so that was Senator Menjivar. Again, if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We can send them along. We will get answers. They had a big event tonight that relating to her birthday that everybody was celebrating together. So they couldn't be here this evening, but I know that she was very much invested in the fact that we were supporting her and wants to see this through. So yes, any questions, we'll pass it along. And I think we'll be ready to move along to our next guest who had just joined us. And I'm pulling up a little bit of bio here so I can prep us. Okay, I'll just switch order here. One moment, please. So we have, wait, one moment, please. I'm sorry.
The elections reform, AB 83.
Yes, I'm just pulling up Assembly Member Alex Lee's. Okay, here we go. So AB 83, we have Assembly Member Alex Lee's Legislative Director, Lawrence Abbott, who just joined us. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to say that Alex Lee, for those of you who don't know, he is one of our youngest, if not, I believe the youngest Assembly member, 27 years old. He represents California's 24th Assembly District, which includes the Alameda County communities of Fremont, Newark, and I'm not sure to say Sunol and Santa Clara County communities of Milpitas and San Jose. Assemblymember Lee was elected in 2020 and became the youngest Asian American legislator ever elected and first openly bisexual state legislator in California history. He currently chairs the Assembly Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials Committee. And I will say he was also on the committee today when we were listening to Assemblymember Bryan's bill in the Elections Committee. So I know he's very busy. He's been getting a lot of work done as a progressive, and we're really, really happy to have his office here. So Lawrence, thank you for joining us, and please feel free to take it away. My name is Amani Sanati, And this is Liz Kane, our president, and we are just so happy to have you here with our Westchester-Playa Dem Club.
Well, thank you. It's really a pleasure, truly a pleasure to be here. I'm usually doing things in the East Bay, but this is a state issue. And so I'm really happy that you guys are interested. And so if you decide after I talk about this and you ask me questions that you want to pass AB 83 and endorse it, it is also in appropriations, and it's in the suspense of appropriations. And some folks have coined suspense as being the place where good bills go to die. So probably the best way to get it out of suspense will be to contact the committee members and let them know how important it is. We spent 3 days lobbying. We knocked on all the doors of all of the members of appropriations, and spoke to some other key members also working out of Alex Lee's office. And we got nothing but positive responses from all of them, and really nothing negative. We got a lot of hard questions, but they were all satisfied, and I guess we made a big ruffle. So what this assembly bill would do is it would take foreign money out of our elections. And so that's pretty much what it's called, the Get Foreign Money Out of California Elections Act. But it actually does a lot more than that. Myself and Michelle Sutter and a lot of us have been working for years to try to overturn Citizens United. And there's another partner organization that's working on doing that, movetoamend.org. And they're trying to work with Pramila Jayapal, and she gave us the We the People amendment. That's House Joint Resolution 54. And so that would, be the bigger fix, but that's a long-term project. But hoping that your Democratic Club will look at that also and maybe invite me back to talk about that, because we're getting actually a majority of California's representatives supporting this effort. By the way, how much time do I have? So I can cram it into whatever space I have available.
We figured approximately 15 minutes for each bill. Some have gone a little under, some just went
Oh, that's
over.
perfect. That's perfect.
So,
yeah.
And if you don't mind, the goal is to tell us what the bill is,
Yep.
let us know where it is, what you kind of did already, and how to
Yep.
support it.
Yep.
However you want
So,
that would be.
Yeah, so I wanted to give you a little bit of background information. It's sort of an end run around Citizens United. So Citizens United opened the floodgates of big corporate money into our elections, all of our elections, including our state elections here in California and even local elections. Some of our assembly races in the Bay Area are getting crazy with hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in from big oil and big tobacco and whatnot. So this bill is actually an end run around Citizens United, and it's so ironic the way it happened. It's because of Trump, believe it or not. Trump, when he passed the tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires and giant corporations, it made investing in U.S. corporations look incredibly good because they barely have to pay taxes on their profits. So the percentage of foreign ownership in U.S. corporations jumped up from around 20% to over 40%. So it's so amazing. So when Citizens United passed, and Justice John Paul Stevens, in his dissent to Citizens United, I have a quote here. He said, "The notion that Congress might lack the authority to distinguish foreigners from citizens in the regulation of electioneering would certainly have surprised the framers, whose obsession with foreign influence derived from a fear that foreign powers and individuals had no basic investment in the well-being of this country." And so that's really true. And now 98% of the S&P 500 corporations would meet the threshold of being partially foreign owned and would not be able to put a penny into our elections in California. And that includes, electing people, laws, and even trying to put measures on the ballot. So it would really block the giant corporations, and the worst ones are the ones that are, the most heavily foreign invested, like the big oil companies, big tobacco, all those kind. So like when Uber introduced AB 83 and they, usurped the will of the people by by making it so that their drivers were no longer considered contractors, but employees, but being back to contractors again. They wouldn't have been able to do that because they're owned by the Saudis, and then I think Lyft is the one that's owned by China. So, you know, partially enough to exclude them from our election. So that's the main thing that this bill does, and it closes a huge loophole that Citizens United opened up. And these foreign interests, you know, even if you don't hate giant corporations like I do in our politics, I think every American hates, you know, foreign interests getting sort of an end run. They're the sneaky ones, right? They're the ones that have figured out how to get their influence in our politics just by buying stocks, and then they buy enough shares that they have the ear of the CEO and can really get these corporations to invest in our politics, and that's when it hurts all of us. So I think that's the main thing I wanted to say, and I wanted to leave time for questions and answers. One other thing, probably the best thing to do in the chat, I put money out voters in. Everything about our campaign is at that website. So if anyone has any questions, including all the massive number of organizations, state, local, and regional organizations that have endorsed AB 83 and are going to help us pass this, including a growing number of Democratic clubs. It's all there at the moneyoutvotersin.org website. So any questions?
Okay, so I want to be clear, we're going to be needed to support at which time? Because it's in the suspense. Right?
Already soon. So we passed our first committee hearing, and then the second one was appropriations, and it ended up going into suspense. So in suspense, if it never comes out of suspense, it never comes out of appropriations. And at that point, the bill dies for the year. And that actually happened last year when Alex Lee tried to introduce an earlier version. And you can just imagine how giant corporations have every influence of putting all the pressure they can on the appropriations members to leave it alone and let it die in suspense. So it's going to be up to us to contact the members of appropriations and tell them, no, you know, pass this along, get it out of suspense. We need to win. We need to get this moving along and make it law in California. And again, you can find all of that at the website, moneyandvotersout.org.
Okay. I do want to ask Liz to chime in here because I know this was heavily supported at a recent function among many Democratic clubs. And that's when you first brought this bill up, Liz. Did you want to mention something about that or ask something about that?
I know that the West LA Democratic Club, which is a sister club to us, is, you know, really involved in, you know, supporting this. And so they were the ones that spoke to us, and it was one of the bills that we brought forward to the board. So I'm super excited. You know, it's moved out of committee and it's in suspense, but I think it is something that it's going to need a lot of groundswell, right? A lot of community voice to get it out of suspense, because we all know money in politics is, you know, it doesn't always speak for the voice of the people. And that's the point of politics, right? It's the people's house. It's the, you know, when we think about that, we think about all the work that we do, this volunteer work as Dems, through our Dem Club organizations and other organizations that we work in. So that's why we brought it forward, and so happy the clubs decided to, you know, endorse it and support it going forward. And that website you have, is there like a way, I know we can track bills through legislation, the CA legislation website. Do they have a bill tracker on there as well?
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure they do.
Awesome. That's
great. Or a link to it.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So that's it.
Thank you, Liz. You said that a lot better than I could, a lot more succinctly, and I really appreciate it because, you know, that big corporate money can be so toxic, and people can get used to that kind of corruption. You know, it becomes institutional corruption, and people just think it's normal when, especially young people that have, you know, only gotten into politics since after Citizens United passed. And people, old folks like me that are over 60, we remember a day when politics was not so dysfunctional. And you know, you could have never elected a Donald Trump in 1960. It would have just been absolutely impossible. But as our system, embraces big money and corruption, it just can only mean bad things for our future. And my biggest fear is it'll mostly mean that we'll transition to renewable energy too slow. And too slow means, that our great grandchildren are pretty much doomed. So to me, this is really the most important bill this year. And it's happening in other states. Minnesota is actually passing the same exact bill, moving it through their legislature. And it's already advanced further than ours. So, we got to get it out of suspense quick. We don't want to be left behind by Minnesota and some of the other states, because if we can do this in California, it should spread all across the country like wildfire and go a long ways towards for restoring democracy and really bringing the voice of the people back.
Yeah, I think you said that so well. And that's so interesting about Minnesota. I don't even know where to begin to ask a question about that, but they're ahead of us. We're right behind.
Just because of the way when the bill was introduced in their legislative process. Yeah.
Okay.
We could be tied up if we get it out of suspense right away.
Our club is really lucky. We have the gift of generations on our club. So we have members of all ages and all ranges. And, so it's great when we get together as an organization to hear, just like you said, politics before Citizens United, that's like barely in my realm of like understanding, but we definitely have the gift of generations in our club. And so I know some of our club members that have been around for a long time really want to get back to the way that politics used to be, where it was that groundswell and it was the canvassing and it was community, rather than the millions and millions and billions of dollars that go into elections annually. So
again, you said it better than I did. Thank you so much.
Well, Lauren, something you did mention that I think is very important is that the newer generations are becoming accustomed to this. And that's part of, I didn't get to tell you about the 3 E's, are engaging, educating, and empowering people to do things. So the engagement, right? We have to wake people up to say, no, this is not normal. This is not something we're going to accept. So I think that spoke to me because because of that. So we have to wake people up to what we ought to be. The voice.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lawrence. Are there any other questions before we let Lawrence enjoy his evening? I don't know if you know, but we are also AB1. AB1 was one of the bills, and we are very grateful, but also want to be respectful of all this extra time you're putting in. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. You actually made my evening. And anytime I see a glimmer of hope and see folks engaged in their community, it really makes my day. So you guys are doing wonderful work. I appreciate you all so much.
Likewise. Well, please tell the assembly member thank you, and we will be following to further support. So if anything comes up that you want to email me, like a heads up other than what you've already given us, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, but really do check out the website. I encourage everybody just to check it. It's a really fun website, and you can sign up to get engaged with this bill. And they'll tell you right when we all need to mobilize and when we need to put pressure on folks, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks.
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
All righty.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Lawrence, bye-bye.
All right, we just have one more nominees, and I don't think we have a ledge rep from this one. Am I correct?
We don't, so we can put up the bill.
Hold on. There it is.
Okay. And I'll read a little bit of the press release just so we're a little familiar with it. But I will say this is for Assemblymember Gabriel, from Assemblymember Gabriel. This is the other firearms bill that's also being endorsed by Moms Demand Action and Everytown for Gun Safety and all the gun organizations. So it's these two bills that they're endorsing. I'm just going to read a little bit from the press release because I think it succinctly states what I won't. So it is a new measure that would impose excise taxes on the sale of guns and ammunition, use proceeds to fund school safety and violence intervention programs. Well, actually, sorry, I read the trio. It's just the new measure that's going to impose the taxes. So this tax is going to come from the sale of guns to use for anti-gun stuff, essentially. So it's the bill formerly known as Assembly Bill 28 was introduced on the first day of the 2023-2024 legislative session as part of a trio of gun violence prevention bills authored by Assemblymember Gabriel and other members of the legislative working group. Two additional measures, AB 29 and AB 36, would strengthen California's gun laws to better address incidents of gun violence related to mental health and domestic violence. So this is for AB 28. I will say something here from Shannon Watts, who's the founder of Moms Demand Action in California, and also California residents, which I didn't know that. She said, we know strong gun safety laws save lives. These smart gun safety bills will continue California's legacy of fighting gun violence and will provide residents throughout our state with peace of mind. Our grassroots army of volunteers thanks Assemblymember Gabriel for listening to the advocates and constituents. And this is the one that he really that he listened to, like a part of the trio. I don't know why this one was picked and not the other two to be endorsed. That's what I would like to get some answers on. However, the way I see it is everybody's lining up behind these two bills. We need change. We got to follow up, and I will follow up with the assembly member to see if there's anything concrete that we can do. I imagine it looks just like everything else we've heard. And if it's anything like what Senator Portantino told us about the other bill that's related to firearms, I imagine it's going to be received well, at least in this state. So I can't act like I'm an expert on this bill. This was a lot of information, and I was just here to present, and hopefully we can learn together. But that is the gist of this one. It's taking the tax and applying it towards protection, essentially. So anybody
The next step on this bill, Amanise, is it's actually going to be heard. Their next hearing is April 24th. So it's coming up next week. And so when we get any information on any of these bills that our club is going to be supporting, we will post it to our social media. So if you're on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, we post to all three of our social media platforms for things that's like an instant action item. For these, we'll be posting for these 9 bills in particular and giving you guys ways to track them. Something I wanted to show the group quickly, if I could get back to that slide.
And as you're saying that, I want to read one sentence I skipped over here. I think it's important that I was kind of vague on the taxes. It says the proceeds from, well, let me go back. It will impose new excise taxes on the sale of guns and ammunition in the state of California. The proceeds from these taxes would be directed towards efforts to better protect Californians from mass shootings and gun violence, including new school safety measures, as well as violence intervention and prevention programs. Making it more, making it cost more and using that money towards something to help. That's essentially what it looks like.
Perfect. And as we kind of wrap up these ideas, these conversations, I did want to share this information that's on the slide. I'm going to put the link into the chat as well. You can track the bills through the California legislative website. So I dropped the link in the chat and put it in the debrief notes for everybody when we finish. You can go and then you can search for the bill. So we'll make sure you have all the bill names. And then you can download the PDF if you like to highlight and annotate. You can add it to your favorites so you can track. And you can literally click to track. It's like subscribe on YouTube or on anything else. And what you do is you register on the site. And once you register, you're going to get the updates. So if you had been registered for the bill that Assemblymember Bryan had already, after it went out of committee, it passed out of committee, I got a ping. I got an email that said, it's passed and now it's going where. So this is a really great tool. I think technology sometimes is hard and challenging, but I think that this in particular, this ability to track a bill is valuable because the 9 that we selected is a very, very, very small number. And if you have something that you're interested in or something that you in your everyday life, if you work in housing or you are working in other industries that have bills that they're legislating for and people are advocating for, it's just a great way to track any of those bills. So I think that's it from me. I do have 2 slides at the end. Any questions for the club? I see Carrie giving us a shout out in the chat. Thanks, Carrie. If you are not already a member of the club, hold on. This is your chance. Get out your cell phone, scan this bit.ly and join our club. It's only $27 to be a member, and we have new swag, card magnets and all sorts of awesome things for our members. So we can't wait to see you guys. Our next event coming up will be in person May 24th. It's going to be at the Three Weavers Brewery. They are a bar, a brewery, a local woman-owned brewery right here at the border of Westchester and Inglewood. We've gone there a few times before for events. So no host bar, meaning we are not paying for your drinks. You can pay for your drinks at the brewery, but we will be providing pizza and a $5 suggested donation. All the money always just goes to our club events, including when we end up making donations to campaigns and the such. And then in June, we are going to be having a family day at the PDR Lagoon. So June 11th, details to come, but we're really looking forward to expanding our membership and really engaging Dems across the, the age range, the spectrum, all of those kind of things, because we know that it takes every voice to be part of this process. And we're just super excited that you all joined us tonight and that we had so much great response from the electeds, right? We're so happy to have Senator Portantino here, but then even more the ledge staff, these staffers really, really work hard, and they, they see how the sausage is made. Someone might say all the nitty gritty. And so we're just so happy to be able to have them with us to be able to hear about it from them and really push this work forward. So I think that's it, unless there's anything else, my friends. All right.
A huge gratitude. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I was looking forward to this very much, as I told you in the beginning, and I'm very pleased with how it all went and to see how everything came together. And most importantly, to see you all engaged in this with us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to stop the recording.